bandits are now on their own, but the military will not rest on their oars until we end this thing. And the president has given us marching order to end insecurity in every part of our country by end of this year. And the Chief of Defense Staff, the NSA, and indeed it's their own team are working day and night to actualize that target. And as you have seen, we are putting pressure in almost all the theaters of operation. And indeed, mining activities has been lifted in Zamfara already. And this is part of the reason we are meeting today, to look at all areas where you have serious issues of security, and to see how best we can secure those areas so that Nigeria will continue to make money out of what we have.
Cooperation and collaboration, and very supportive effort from the Ministry of Defense, from all this security architecture, and from the governor of Nasarawa State, because Nasarawa State is really very pivotal to our mineral development in Nigeria, simply because of the endowment. Lithium, for instance, is quite massive in Nasarawa State, so it's like a theater or epicenter of mining in Nigeria. So that is why it's important for me also to always discuss it. In fact, I recall the last time I went to represent the president there to commission a factory. His Excellency, the Governor of Nasarawa State, referred to himself as the Junior Minister for Minerals, Federal Ministry of Minerals, jocularly, but it is symbolic in a sense that it really speaks to the significance of Nasarawa State, when we talk about minerals development in Nigeria.
There we have it, Minister of Solid Minerals Development, Dele Alake, speaking up there. And before that, you heard the Minister of Defense, Abubakar Badaru. When we look at the mining sector and when it comes to solid minerals in Nigeria, one of the major issues hampering the progress of this particular sector of our economy is insecurity. With the situations we hear in Zamfara State and other parts of the country, one may wonder what has been done so far. When we talk about security, honestly, it does get a little upsetting sometimes, because it feels like we keep saying the same thing every year. But there's a new dimension they say they're giving us for 2025. The Chief of Defense Staff says 2025 is the year to end insecurity. That's what the Chief of Defense Staff said. And we're hearing the Minister of Defense saying the same thing as well. It is the year to end it. How? Same game, different game. What's the plan? Well, joining us is someone who understands the strategy that's involved in ending this scourge on our country, this embarrassing situation that's cost us so many lives. The economies of so many families deteriorated, and watching our country continually go down the drain under this very embarrassing situation. One that many people have wondered who are the players involved, who's complicit, because it doesn't make sense that this has been going on for a very long time without an actual solution. Mr. Mike Ejiofor joins us, former director of the DSS and president of the Alumni Association, National Institute for Security Studies. Thank you so much for being with us on the program. I do have to say that when we were listening, while we're listening to the Minister of Defense and listening to the Minister of Solid Minerals Development, you were shaking your head. You were shaking your head. You're like, talk, 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 talk. We've heard the talk. Is there a reason, in your view, why nothing has been done? We've had you so many times, Mr. Ejiofor, talking about the same thing. At this point, it does seem like it's on purpose. We don't want to solve this.
You see, at times when I'm invited for these television talks, at times I get bored because I end up repeating myself. How do we do it? How do we get out of this problem? And it can be talk. I recall that government is still making efforts, in fairness, because if you look at the budget for security and defense this year, the budget is quite huge. Why I'm not impressed with the budgeting alone, what percentage of that budget is released? And are they judiciously used? what is the oversight function of the National Assembly? Is it for them to look at what they should gain from it, or to ensure that things budgeted for are purchased in terms of training, in terms of welfare of personnel? So these are the areas we should be looking at. And in fact, we'll come to that. That is why I said the multi-dimensional problems of Nigeria. We're organizing a seminar, the Alumni Association now. What we look at is practical approach. Too much English, too much speaking. So we are looking for practical approach on how to solve this problem. So we want to get all the security agencies involved, from the NSA, from the police, DGSS, everybody must be involved. Let us sit down. We've had several seminars on security, national summit, national this, and yet the problem persists. So we need to look inwards now to see practical approaches of solving this our problem. It's a big problem.
Last week we heard Senator Shobole saying that former members of our military are part of this. We have heard that many members of our political class are behind this. We have heard that there are negotiations going on behind the back of state governors, they don't know. We have also heard, oh no, we're trying to do what we want to do, but the state government is not cooperating. We've heard so many explanations over the years. Is this solvable? Let's start from there. With all these players involved, new terrorist groups coming up every day, well, it has now become, I remember you said that you didn't believe in ransom payment until you had to pay ransom yourself.
Well, of course, yes.
Because you were also kidnapped. And you talked about how this ransom, it's a business. How are you going to stop it with all the hands inside this soup?
You see, you mentioned Oshomole. I've never met Oshomole one-on-one. I read him, I see him on paper. But if some of our senators can be sincere in what they are doing, look at the shame. He moved the motion that the military should concentrate on fighting the war instead of building universities. You are building universities, others are attending. And that bill was killed. It's a shame of the country. That bill was killed. The Senate president, maybe they didn't understand, asked that question 3 times. And they just killed it. And this is a country that is virtually at war. I'll put it that way. Because we are being confronted with a lot of challenges. Is it kidnapping? Is it terrorism? Is it banditry? During your intro, you were talking of mineral resources. Who are the people behind the mineral resources? So the problems are numerous that we also have to look into it to see how be sincere in tackling this problem, because there's no way we can make any meaningful progress without security. The government might be trying to do its own part to provide, because the primary purpose of government is welfare and security of the people, as enshrined in our Constitution, Section 14(2)(b). So any government that cannot provide the security and welfare of the people is not worth being called a government. Well, I think
maybe they don't care.
They do care. I think what we should do, is to change.
If we were making money from insecurity, I would not care. I think maybe because of how many years it has gone on for and how endemic. Look at, we had the CP from Ebonyi in our first segment today, because people have been killed again in a local community in Ebonyi State. So with how pervasive it is and how it is spreading, it has gotten to where many Nigerians are beginning to think maybe these people don't care, because when we say, oh, the job of government is the security of the lives, maybe they don't care about the security of lives of the citizens. Like we've heard, too many people are invested in keeping the place insecure.
Security has now become virtually a franchise where people make money. And we just have to change that narrative. We just have to change that narrative. How do we do it? There must be synergy You see, unfortunately, the new DGSSS doesn't want to tell people what he's doing. But behind the scene, we know that he's doing a lot. You recall that in Elisha, Osun State, recently, 10 of these bandits were arrested. And they didn't make it. People got to know of it when they got to court. So perhaps he might also want to let people know what he's doing. But it's a covert organization, and he wants to remain that way. But I think for those of us who have inkling or insight into what they are doing, we should be talking, assuring members of the public that government is doing something to bring this to bear. And if you can see his relationship with the other service chiefs, they meet regularly. And that I think would be with the Chief of Defense Staff, Chief of Army Staff, Naval Staff, NSC, they're always meeting to find solutions to this problem. Because it's lasting for too long. If you remember what General Abacha said, that if any war lasts more than 48 hours, then government is involved. But I don't want to believe that government is involved. Rather, what we are doing, our approaches. You can't continue to do the same thing the same way and expect a different result. It's only a madman that expects to be doing the same thing, the same thing and expect a different result. So we need to change our tactics, we need to change our approaches by involving not only the military or the security and intelligence agencies, but the people must be involved. In some areas, in some local governments, we're talking, take for instance, the Northwest, North Central. Some of the local government councils exist only on sharing of allocation. Absolute absence of local government administration. So how do you check such area? That's why we now have what is called ungoverned spaces. So we need to come together, possibly look for a national summit again.
Another summit.
Another summit. Another national
Another summit again.
Another summit.
People come and collect DTA and go. Another summit.
Yeah, but like I said, we are looking at the Alumni Association of the National Institute for Security Studies. We are looking for practical solutions. So shortly, we'll come out with our program that will involve everybody and let us see how the problem of this country. Don't also forget that members of the association are mainly retired security regulatory agencies and intelligence agencies. So everybody is involved. We must be involved. Some of us who are retired, we can offer ideas to them and see how they can be effectively monitored, especially the security agencies, to see how they come out and get results.
Ayo has a few questions for you. Go ahead, Ayo.
Well, thank you, Kayla. The question is in the topic for me. And, you know, going by what Mr. Alake said, you know, in opening, he spoke about the fact that he himself had kind of the governor, a host governor, had kind of taken the gauntlet to take some responsibility and almost make himself like the junior minister for solid minerals, simply because all eyes are on that state because of its wealth in terms of solid minerals. And it just begs one question, Mr. Jofo. We have been here for way too long. The issue of insecurity occasioned by people exploiting our resources is not a matter that just started today. But as you said, they start in states, and states are within regions. So when we're talking about regional, security, that's just one issue. What is happening in the Southeast is also gone on for so long. The Southwest also gone on for quite significant time. And the North, God knows when it's still going to come up again. So one major question that I want to ask first is, are these issues intractable? Are they catching us by surprise? Are we having failure of intelligence? Are we having inadequate or inactionable intelligence? If we look at it really, Mr. Jofo, what have we missed? Or what are we missing?
Now, I can tell you that intelligence provision is never lacking in Nigeria. But the problem is the action agencies, do they have the capacity or capabilities to handle these problems? People, you gave the example of mineral exploitation in the Northwest. These people are dangerously armed and they are ready to die. They don't get, they have no standard operational procedure.
This leads to something else, Mr. Ejiofor. They are heavily armed. From my layman understanding, arms aren't cheap. You don't just go to a shopping mall to buy a gun. And when I hear AK-47, it sounds like you're just talking about a toy or some. No, they aren't cheap. Or are they? Are they so easy to come by peasants?
They are not cheap. And that is why it's illegal. If, you know, anything you blacklist, people tend to go more for it. If you look at the bandits, the Boko Haram, the type of arms they carry out, and they unleash it to members of the public. And if you look at, by the time the military or the Air Force, again, deploys their tactics, the next thing you hear, human rights, you have killed people, you have abused human rights, and all those kind of talks. So it's not cheap to get arms. These are arms that are illegally acquired and illegally used against the people, and they are there to protect their interests. So if you look at, you talk about the problem in the Southeast, you talk about problem in the Southwest. What are our governors doing with all the security fund allocation given to them? What are they doing with them? I expected, like the Southeast, when they formed the Eastern Security Network, or Ebubago, or whatever they call it, these other people came and established their own too. The ESN, you have the unknown gunmen, you have kidnapping, you have terrorism, the place is so unsafe. You go to the Southwest, we're now talking of influx and infiltration of the Southwest by bandits who are running away from the heat in the Northwest. And don't also forget, this is a border, Nigerian boundaries, and they go through the border to go down to the Southwest. So people will begin to ask, what business do we have between the bandits and the Southwest governors too, I believe, have met and they are trying to see how they can solve this problem. But my fear is that since the establishment of Amotekun, I stand to be corrected. I think it's only Ondo that is very effective. I don't know, possibly Oyo again, but there's no collaboration among the states, you know, to ensure that they're properly manned.
No, you know, one other issue that is raised here, and that's also even as high-ranking an official as the Chief of Defense Staff also made the same statement. Now, look, you know, the military will do what the military will do, but the politicians have their own jobs to play. And as Kayla referenced earlier or inferred earlier, there is high suspicion that some of these issues, some of these insecurity issues are political in nature. So is it possible that indeed some of them are politically motivated and consequently being ignored, or is there a political will lost? What's the role of politics in all of this? Because it seems like we're just toying with people's lives.
Well, if you remember that I've said it on this forum several times, over 70%, I just want to be conservative, over 70% of our security challenges in this country are politically motivated. Is it through election? Is it through killing of struggle for power? Is it blind acquisition of wealth by politicians? And you can go on and on. These are politically motivated and generated crises that are avoidable. So the politicians need to be talked to. They need to be advised that if you don't have Nigeria, there's no place for them to play their politics. So they must consider this country first. But they don't think about country. They think of what they should acquire, what they should get first, from the local government to the topmost level in terms of governance. We have complete breakdown of governance perpetrated by politicians.
I mean, I don't want us to continue like this. You know, it's there's a temptation to do it as journalists and as people who are in this field as well, security. I mean, there's a tendency for us to just say what we can. And the truth is, the conversation has to continue. Okay, we can't stop the conversation. Yeah. But the conversation needs to be built on. We need to see that we've moved from this level to this level. Then we can build on that and actually start to see, you know, the benefits of these conversations on the security structure of our country. And that's the bit of this whole scenario that I don't see happening, because it feels like we're stuck in a particular level. Let's talk a little bit about some of the things that we've heard from the military recently. You personally talked about ransom payments and how this has become a lucrative business. To be very honest, for many people who went shocked when Lakurawa came up, because if people are making money from it, it's only natural that some people will start to think about how they can get into the same business. How do we stop this lucrative business? Being someone who has had to pay ransom himself, how do we stop this?
Well, it's not going to be easy, but I can tell you that if the right approaches are made, we'll get results. I'll give you an example. You talk of structural balancing of our security architecture. Now, the 36 state governors agreed that there should be establishment of state police.
Okay.
As we speak, nothing has been said about that. And I have been a very strong advocate of the creation of state police, despite some misgivings by some people that it will be abused.
Would that be the silver bullet?
Of
State
course,
police?
yes.
Okay.
Because intelligence is driven by the grassroots. People at the grassroots. People who know the environment, people who know the terrain. So if you have a state police that now generates accurate intelligence to the security agencies, our problem will be half solved. Half solved, you say? Yes, okay. It will be half solved, because we also need the mobilization of the people. We don't just leave them for the security agencies. The people need to be involved. The political class needs to, everybody must be involved. We just have to do something different to achieve a different result.
We'll be looking forward to some of these different approaches. I'm building on the conversation. I've decided, personally, I'm not going to be having the same. When it comes to security, what has happened? How do we build on it? Because it feels like we've been going around in circles for a very long time. Maybe it's time to stop. Maybe the CDS is right. 2025 is the year that will end insecurity.
In fairness, giving deadline, to this might not be realistic. But I believe that the CDS too means well and is doing so much to change the narrative. Because we just have to change the narrative.
I want to thank you very much, Mr. Michael Geoffrey, former director of the DSS, for being with us in the studio, and good luck with all the work you have ahead of you.
Thank you for having me.
Well, a few messages. First is Akimboye Wise. First, he says, the threat of Ebola spreading to Nigeria again is terrifying. Although Ebola is frightening and deadly, it's good that we now have the experience of containing it. We also now know the virus can be transmitted by direct contact with the blood and body fluids of infected persons. We must all be vigilant, and government must deploy resources necessary for preventing the disease from reaching the shores of our country. And Professor Enakena says the key pillars supported under Ebola virus disease, its elaborate preparedness program, the coordination, surveillance at the communities, and health facility levels, laboratory diagnosis, case management, infection prevention and control, risk communication and community engagement, operational support, and logistics and preventive vaccination of frontline health workers. And thank you all so much for your messages and for being with us on the program. We'll be back again tomorrow with more conversation. Please tune in and be safe. I'm Kayla Magwa. Have a great week ahead.
Be your brother's keeper this week. It's going to be a profitable one. I'm Aya Makide. Have a wonderful rest of your day.